Welcome to Animal X, and an investigation that will send shivers down your spine. Reports are pouring in of a ruthless beast on an unstoppable killing spree. It sucks every drop of blood out of its victims and leaves a trail of terror wherever it roams. No one knows what it is, but its name alone strikes fear into the hearts of many. El Chupacabra.
And 90% of the blood of the animal is sucked out.
It seemed like he was the predator, I was the victim.
Most of Chupacabra's victims have been animals, but no one is safe. Vampire-like beasts seem to have acquired a taste for humans.
Chupacabra!
Stranger things in heaven and earth. You're about to see one of them.
Just be careful.
The mystery of El Chupacabra, or the goat sucker, began in the mid-1990s on the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. In and around the small town of Canavanas, almost 200 farm animals and pets were killed in a bizarre and disturbing fashion. They all had 2 small wounds on the neck and were drained of nearly all their blood. What kind of creature could do such damage? I've sent Daniel and Natalie to the Animal X archive to check it out.
Yep, hi Bill. Dan's been through the archive. Take a look at this.
Reports started to surface early in 1995 of attacks on livestock. These attacks were unlike anything seen before, and panic started to spread throughout the Hispanic community. The reports became more and more frequent, and were so consistent that they had to be taken seriously. Not even a person with a knife can make this sort of incision on an animal. And the animal has no blood left in its body. You can't see footprints anywhere, so whatever it is appears to fly. All the chickens have been sucked of their blood.
I think this one sums it up, Bill. There's a farmer in Canavanas by the name of Senor Miguel Dominguez who had all of his birds slaughtered. Now he says when he found his turkeys, they were all dead, they were all in one piece, but they were all drained of blood. One of the people who found themselves in the middle of this mystery was veterinarian Dr. Carlos Sato.
He's examined dozens of victims. Goats, cows, dogs, birds, rabbits. So he's quite experienced when it comes to these bizarre injuries.
Primarily the injuries were like small puncture wounds, 1 centimeter in diameter, and then inside the carcass there was a big depletion of blood, okay? And in some areas we can see like areas where small portions of the vital organs like liver, kidneys, or portion of the heart were just removed from that small hole. So we could not see any strange or damage of external to the skin or feathers or things like that. Because I can explain from one hand that we just did a necropsy. Externally was all okay, except for 2 lateral wounds, okay, in the chest area, okay? When we just opened the complete hand, we could see portions of liver just gone from that area, and also a lot of muscle trauma, just being traumatized without external trauma. So we could not see any open wound in the outside, but in the inside was all traumatized.
What could do that?
Okay, for my knowledge, or from my knowledge, I cannot explain how that happened. I would say about 30% of the animals that we just did the necropsy, they lack a rigor mortis in which, you know, that when they die, they go into different stages of rigor mortis. But I can tell about animals that were more than 4 or 5 hours of being dead, and they still flaccid. And there's no explanation for that. It's one of my theories that some type of anticoagulant was put into inside the animals that were attacked. Also, these animals were attacked and they were killed in an humane manner, because all of them were killed in the base of the brain, so they were killed, you know, with no pain.
After these attacks, the police were inundated with calls demanding an investigation, as was the mayor of Canavanas. The mayor says all the descriptions were the same. The animal was bipedal, with large red eyes, spikes down its back, and a huge head. With so many frightened residents complaining, he coordinated with the police to arrange a major Chupacabra hunt.
La policía de Puerto Rico, muchos policías
He says the hunting party consists of policemen, local residents and volunteers, and people who are interested in catching El Chupacabra. The mayor says some members of the hunting party have actually seen El Chupacabra and have been very close to catching it. He says they concentrated their hunt near some caves or near rivers that flow from the caves, because many of the attacks happened in that vicinity. But, he says, there is one strange thing. Once the police began investigating, the attacks stopped, only to begin somewhere else.
Interesting information from the Animal X archives. Whatever Chupacabra is, it may not have originated in Puerto Rico as many people think. I've been trawling through the Animal X database and have uncovered a bizarre coincidence. Back in 1955, a small boy by the name of Joey Ureal had an encounter that still haunts him to this day. This is Joey today. He lives in Tucson, Arizona. Now, bear in mind, this was some 40 years before the sightings in Puerto Rico, and before it got the name El Chupacabra. But the similarities are striking. I believe this could be the first ever sighting of El Chupacabra. Now listen to his story.
I was playing by the chicken coop that we had in the backyard of our house. And then all of a sudden I heard the outhouse door open, kind of creaking open real slowly. And I saw this creature's head looking over through the doorway. First thing that I saw was his eyes, and then its head, and I noticed it didn't have any ears. As it looked at me like a very, I don't know, like it wanted me to come over to him, like it seemed like he was the predator, I was the victim.
Okay, Bill, but he was only about 5 years old when he saw this creature, so as a witness, how reliable can he be?
Good point, Dan. But listen to what else he has to say.
First I thought it was the devil. First I thought it was an alien from, some creature from outer space. Who knows? I mean, I know what I saw. Even at that age, it's something like you never forget. Something that scares the hell out of you. You're going to remember it. What I saw is it looked like part kangaroo and part something else. It seemed like it was talking to me, telepathy, it was like it was telling me, hey, come over here. I want you. I don't know what for. Maybe it could have eaten me.
A terrifying creature that communicates telepathically? Doesn't sound like anything from this world. So let's check out some earthly suspects. Natalie, some investigators say the attackers were dogs, wolves, or monkeys. What do you think of that?
Well, Bill, certainly some of the evidence points to dogs. I mean, domestic dogs have been known to viciously attack livestock, but generally they'll only do so in packs. So we'd expect to see dozens of dog prints crisscrossing each other. But in the case of Chupacabra, we're only seeing 2 hind dog-like prints and not dozens. And when domestic dogs kill in packs, they behave in a similar way to African hunting dogs and painted dogs, by tearing and ripping into their prey.
Their fangs can leave holes in the necks of their victims, but they don't suck blood. And anyway, Chupacabra hunts alone. As for monkeys, they have fangs and they can cause the same kind of damage.
And of course, they don't suck blood. The story may have begun in Puerto Rico, but my darlings, it doesn't end there. Today, a new hot spot has emerged in Chile. And that's where I'm sending Daniel and Natalie. Dan and Nat will pick up the hunt for El Chupacabra in Chile's Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth.
This hostile desert is the closest thing to Mars on planet Earth. No wonder NASA uses the Atacama Desert as a training ground for future Mars missions.
The plants and animals that live in this dry, barren wasteland are few and far between, but those that do have developed special survival techniques in a place where they measure rainfall by micrometers, if they measure it at all.
If Chupacabras are real, and many people think they are, then how could they live successfully in such an extreme environment with so few animals to prey on? The animals that live in the Atacama are snakes, lizards, insects, foxes and hares. But these aren't enough to satisfy the bloodlust of El Chupacabra, a creature that's said to feed exclusively on blood.
The only mammal to feed exclusively on blood, like the Chupacabra, is the vampire bat. But it doesn't actually kill its prey. It just takes its fill of blood and leaves. And it's just too small to inflict the kind of wounds that we're finding on victims. Fossil records point to a slightly larger species of vampire bat that once haunted the night skies.
But scientists say it's extinct. Bats have always been a source of fear, due mainly to their nocturnal habits and, of course, Hollywood. But in fact, most bats are not vampires at all. They feed on fruit and insects. So Chupacabra is definitely not a bat.
And besides, many witnesses who claim to have seen this predator say it wasn't of this world. Eyewitnesses describe El Chupacabra between 4 and 6 feet tall, with coarse, dark hair and spikes running down its back. It has long, sharp fangs and 3 claws on each foot. Some describe it as having small wings too. They say it looked like a cross between a kangaroo and something else. But the victims of El Chupacabra reveal something even more peculiar. There are striking similarities between the attacks and feeding methods of El Chupacabra and that of some insects and spiders. Marco Reneso believes the comparison with insects goes even further. Now, you actually know people that have seen Chupacabra and have actually seen it jump from the street to the top of a street post. What is their story?
Several people, including cops, saw this entity and started chasing it and throwing rocks at it, and this entity started jumping, leaving, and then it went up a post and they kept on throwing rocks, and then it came back down the post until it left and got lost.
Now, the only problem I have with this creature being an insect, considering it's about 80 centimetres to a metre, insects have a thick exoskeleton which is used to protect their organs, and a creature that size the exoskeleton would be so heavy, I just don't see how an animal like that would be able to jump those distances.
What it resembles is the attack, like an insect would attack, but there is no exoskeleton. We have a witness who was attacked by Chupacabras in the northeast territory of our country. He says that he tried to defend himself against the Chupacabra by hitting him, and once he hit him, he felt the texture was soft, it was bland, it was like a worm. The body is not like an insect.
They must be quite intelligent creatures.
Yes, indeed. Effectively, after analyzing the places where this predator attacked, the way it attacked, we can see that this animal had some sort of intelligence, some degree of intelligence or wit. Sometimes there were obstacles that would have to be conquered for it to get to its prey. Like you have to remove objects to get into a cage, or even it would open doorknobs. So similar things like that, which obviously led us to believe that this creature has some degree of intelligence.
It seems to prefer the blood of farm animals and pets, as Daniel has discovered at the Montessori School of Ecology in the nearby town of Calama.
The most disturbing incident in these series of attacks was the slaughter of a llama in the school's farmyard.
Senor Juan Vega Espinoza is a science teacher and the school's principal.
Yes, it happened right here inside the cage. I found a llama dead on the ground and a wound from the base of the neck that reached to the heart.
Had the llama been savaged in any way, and was there any damage to the pen?
No, the only injury was the penetrating wound on the neck.
Being a science teacher, Senor Espinoza carried out his own investigation by doing a necropsy on the llama.
We found the liver of the llama was thick, which indicated the blood of the animal had been totally drained out. Very unusual. The liver was found with no blood at all.
Did you find any puncture wounds on the body at all?
Yes, there were bites, from the base of the neck, which connected directly to the heart. The wound was clean and perfect. There was no instrument that could perform such surgery. A knife could have done it, but it wouldn't have been as clean and perfect an incision that the bite that this animal produced.
That's quite remarkable. I can't think of any other mammal besides a vampire bat that feeds on blood, but they only go into the skin about 1/4 of an inch. So from your necropsy findings, what do you think this creature was?
For this creature to suck out the body fluids from its victims, it must possess amazing abilities. And I believe the creature must have very special body parts, like a proboscis, the lack of which I can imagine, that allows it to perform this type of surgery on its victims.
In case you didn't know, a proboscis is a slender organ like a nose, or a sucking instrument, usually only seen in insects. Hard to believe that a mammal could be equipped with such a weapon.
So after examining the animal, do you believe that Chupacabra was responsible for this?
Yes, it could be possible.
And if that is not incredible enough, this trained scientist has seen El Chupacabra himself. Not once, but twice. The first time, he saw it at night on the roof of his house.
It looked like a dog, bird cross. It stood on its 2 really long back legs, and it had a small hand like wings, and it just jumped from rooftop to the other rooftop, like as if it was swinging in the air. I can't explain it. From my biology background, it doesn't correspond to any kind of wildlife known to me. I don't know of any bipedal dogs with wing-type arms that are able to jump from one rooftop to another with a distance of about 18 to 20 feet.
Apart from the way that it looked, was there anything else strange about the creature?
When it jumped, it had like a trail of light, which advanced with the creature. And every time it jumped, you could see this light.
Dr. Espinoza's next sighting was in broad daylight with a bunch of his students at the school.
So, Rodrigo, tell us about what you saw on that day.
We were over there and we saw something strange in the trees. It was something like a dog walking on its hind legs with wings, and it was up in the trees, and when it saw us, it ran away.
So Diego, tell us what you saw on that day.
What I saw that day was a creature that looked like a dog standing on its hind legs. It had a big jaw and wing-type arms. It was grey, then it was gone, and that's all I saw.
Do you think you saw a chupacabra?
I couldn't really say that I saw a chupacabra, but I can tell you that yes, I did. That maybe it was by the shape of its body.
But one local woman got a much closer look at El Chupacabra and lived to tell. Daniel and Natalie are about to meet Evelyn Esbry. She and her husband Walter used to live near Calama until she came face to face with El Chupacabra.
Now, Evelyn, whatever it was that attacked you that night, it must have been a terrifying experience.
Apart from terrifying, it was more traumatic than anything. I wouldn't like ever in my life again to live like that. It changed my life. It marked my life. What's even worse is that I'm not a believer. I thought people always made up stories. But it actually happened. It really amazed me, and it was very, very traumatic for me.
Can you take us through what actually happened the night of the attack?
I woke up at 5 o'clock to go to the toilet. Our toilet was an outdoor toilet, and I was walking. Something fell on my back. I turned around to see what it was, and all I saw was big teeth and big bright luminous eyes, and a very bad smell. It scratched me and bit me, and then I fainted. I can't remember anything else that happened to me apart from that smell. My husband found me lying on the ground.
¿Qué pasó? Evelyn, ¿qué pasó?
Walter, can you tell us about your experience of the morning that Evelyn was attacked?
I found her pale, fainted, and in shock. Well, all I can say is that the wounds amazed me, especially the ones on her hands, as they were straight lines. You could see they were made with 3 cloth. The ones on her back were deep wounds that bled. I imagine they must have been very painful. And immediately I thought this must be El Chupacabra.
She didn't bear the telltale puncture wounds, but the trio of claw marks corresponds with the eyewitness descriptions of a 3-clawed beast.
Evelyn, ¿qué pasó?
After Walter found Evelyn collapsed and bloody on the ground, he called the paramedics, who rushed Evelyn to the regional hospital.
The doctor there told my daughter to take me home because I had some sort of mental disorder and that I had self-inflicted the wounds and that I needed treatment to go and see a psychiatrist.
So, Walter, you are 100% convinced that a chupacabra attacked your wife?
Sí.
And these wounds healed up remarkably quickly, didn't they?
Yes, that was the most curious thing of all. We're talking about a creature that feeds on blood. A creature that is not particularly hygienic, so you can imagine its claws could cause some sort of infection, but it didn't. The wounds disappeared from one day to another.
Another person who was impressed with how quickly Evelyn's wounds healed was Dr. Rodolfo Gonzalez, the paramedic who was first called to the house and took her to the regional hospital.
I found scratches from her back, which were about 28 inches long, from the top of her back to the bottom of her back. Surprisingly, the scratches were straight and they were yellow. The lady was in shock. 3 days later, her injuries disappeared. That really amazed me. As I work in medicine for many years now, I've never seen injuries or scratches like that disappear so quickly.
Do you think that she inflicted the wounds on herself? And if not, what could be responsible for them?
For me, it wasn't self-inflicted. With all my years of experience, it appears to be something very strange. I believe it is hard for someone to create and inflict such wounds.
Do you think this was the work of a chupacabra?
Sí.
And if that wasn't strange enough, Evelyn claims that the creature communicated with her telepathically, just like Joe Ureal's Chupacabra encounter 50 years ago in Arizona. Now, Evelyn believes that she had a telepathic link with the creature that attacked her. What did it say to her?
It told her not to fear, to relax, and not to fight it. It told her it wasn't going to kill her. I believe this is a thinking creature, a creature not from this world.
A creature from another world that subdues its victims telepathically? Pretty far-out stuff, but it might explain why none of the animal victims appear to have any fight or flight injuries. Why they seem to give in without a struggle. In the meantime, the attacks in the Kalama region continue, as Daniel is about to find out when he meets with Herman Oyanabel, head of the police precinct of Antofagasta.
Kalama's police department investigated the attack on Evelyn Esbry, but it's not the first time they've had reports of Chupacabra encounters. Herman, you're in charge of the Chupacabra investigation in Kalama. How many animals were attacked over what period of time?
We counted 232 animals throughout a 10-day period of the attack of the Chupacabra.
Now that's quite a lot of animal attacks over a short period of time.
Well, for us, as you can imagine, it was very, very hard. You have to understand that this was the first time that we have ever faced a situation like this.
So what did your investigation conclude?
The conclusion, to be honest, is not really that clear. Personally, I believe it was a strange unknown animal. We could not establish what it was at all, but it was definitely something strange.
Once word of El Chupacabra's human attack got out, Evelyn and Walter were besieged by the media and other mysterious visitors. Investigators from Colombia, Costa Rica, Peru, and even the United States descended upon the Espry's home. After probing for details, they urged Evelyn to stop telling her story.
Who were these foreigners that came to visit you, and why do you think they wanted you to keep it quiet?
One tall man that had a beard, always wore black, and a brown jacket, and his partner, a white man with blue eyes. They never told me who they were, where they were from, or what they were doing. They just said they were Chupacabra investigators. After 4 to 5 days, they stopped investigating. They told us they didn't have any evidence, and they even demanded us to stop talking about it because we were just crazy.
While the foreigners were investigating the Chupacabra attack, the local authorities were also on the case. Although they still haven't tracked down a Chupacabra, they have documented a rash of unexplained phenomena happening in the same area at the same time. As well as killing hundreds of pets and farm animals, this mysterious vampire-like creature has attacked at least one human mare. Natalie meets with Dr. Ariel Cortez, a local veterinarian. He's examined dozens of El Chupacabra's victims and has made some startling discoveries.
They were like bites from about 1/4 of an inch apart to maybe 2 inches wide.
Now, with the cat that Dr. Gonzalez sent you, what was the state of the body in? What were the wounds? Take us through it.
The 2 cats that were brought in had similar injuries, both in the thorax. That's the chest. They had different organs missing. For example, in the first cat, the bladder, the kidneys, and the lungs were missing, whereas the other cat, the intestine, had gone. The wounds on the cats were up to 2 inches wide, and on the exterior of the wound, we found a thick jelly-like saliva.
So here you have 2 animals that have these large perforations that you think a creature has extracted the blood, there are different organs missing. In your experience as a vet, have you ever seen anything like this?
This is the first time that I had the opportunity to see injuries like this. I've seen many dog bites, fox bites, but I have never seen an injury like this before.
The saliva found around the wounds, was that a natural or unnatural substance?
It's difficult to say whether it was artificial or a natural substance without a full scientific analysis. But I found that the saliva was an anticoagulant, a substance that stops blood from clotting, and in fact makes blood flow easier. The same type of substance that you'll find in insects like mosquitoes, or that you'd find in vampire bats. But whether the saliva was natural or unnatural, I can't tell.
So what do you think, as a vet, of the Chupacabra phenomenon?
I think it's still a mystery. There needs to be more investigations carried out. We know for a fact that the attacker is not a dog, but what it is unknown to science, and it deserves more research. No one's been able to give a scientific description of what this is, and there's never been a concrete analysis. I think there should be more investigation.
Natalie has turned up some shocking developments. Blood-thinning saliva, blood and organs sucked out through the holes. Bizarre. Could El Chupacabra be an alien invader?
At the third year, strange bright balls of light started flying around the sky. The whole town saw them, and one night something bigger and brighter appeared in the sky. Then the balls of light disappeared. But the killings didn't stop. People's pets, rabbits, cats were being found dead.
Curiouser and curiouser. Add to that more animal deaths and the mystery deepens. To follow up, I've sent Daniel and Natalie to meet with Dr. Virgilio Sanchez, who's been studying El Chupacabra for years. He says this creature has been around since the beginning of time.
Going back, for example, in different countries, like in Europe, in France, you have the gargoyles.
Gargoyles are stone structures of horrendous demon-like creatures. They are found on the battlements of medieval castles and churches, and they were designed to scare the peasants. But Dr. Sanchez says that if you accept that gargoyles are the original human explanation for El Chupacabra, then it's a global phenomenon and that the sightings continue to this day.
We have reports of Chupacabra attack in Ireland, in Spain, England, but the attacks are almost the same. We compare footprints from Chupacabras in Chile with the one we obtained in 1996 in Miami, plus another one that we obtained in Spain during the 1994-1995 attacks, and they all are the same. So we find out that in different countries, it's the same animal.
So, El Chupacabra, according to Dr. Sanchez, is a fearsome gargoyle and has been terrorizing the world for centuries. Dr. Sanchez is showing Natalie some of the physical evidence he has collected.
Dr. Sanchez has a collection of footprint casts from all over the world, which he says proves El Chupacabras are real. Have you had any of these casts analysed? Because to look at it on first appearances, it looks very much like a dog print. The same shaped toes, you can see the claws, and the shape of the base, if I can get one. See this one? That's characteristic of a dog.
In the Chupacabra are only 2 legs. So that's eliminate a lot of non-animal. That's why we say we resemble the kangaroo who have 2 legs. The way it behaves, it walks in 2 legs, but it jumps. When it runs in 2 legs, jumping in 2 legs. Not too many animals. No animal have that characteristic. And none of the predators animals suck the blood of the prey by a single hole in the neck. But not only suck the blood and leave the rest of the animal intact. So there are certain characteristics Even if they resemble some animal, non-animal, there are certain characteristics that separate completely.
Dr. Sanchez also managed to recover some hair samples.
So the hairs that you managed to get from Chile, what did the tests say about those hairs?
The only thing that they could find out is that they are mammals. It couldn't be matched to any dog or panther or tiger. In the laboratory, they couldn't match, so the hair is different.
Dr. Sanchez was unable to allow us to test the hair samples, and the lack of evidence is becoming quite frustrating. However, Dr. Sanchez was able to throw some light on those UFO sightings, those lights in the trees that the people of Calama saw. Dr. Sanchez has investigated those sightings as well.
When I was there in June, I tried to find out the place where this light landed. We found the place. We found a tripod, and in front of the tripod, we found about 80 footprints of the Chupacabra. After that, our associate in Chile found many places where the UFO land. Actually, we call it a UFO port because it landed more than one time. So we collect all this evidence which comes with the phenomenon. It's not, I don't think the UFO phenomenon, if it's part of the UFO phenomenon or not, but they are come together. Usually as sightseeing of this animal plus the UFO phenomenon. So we cannot separate.
So what do you think Chupacabra is?
Really, I don't have a key question or the answer to that question. I'm looking for it, what Chupacabra is. So far we know it's a physical animal, very intelligent, and it attacks at night when it's complete dark. There are certain characteristics of the animal that we collect from witness, but what it is, we have to catch one. And I believe this animal could be catch, we have to hunt it. We think that we can catch it. I think anyone could catch it with time. The thing is that this animal attacked by surprise, and you don't know when or where. But if we are alert, the next step is catch one. And then when we catch one, you're going to have the answer of your question.
But that's easier said than done. Dan and Nat are going to set some camera traps.
When you're trying to get an idea of what animals actually live in an area, caves like this one can be extremely helpful.
Most of the mammals that live in the Atacama Desert avoid the high temperatures by being nocturnal and taking shelter in burrows in caves like this during the day. Some of the animals that we'd expect to find living in these caves are bats, foxes, and domestic dogs and cats. Some people also believe that Chupacabra takes refuge in these caves. As well as the animals using these caves as a refuge, the ancient Atacama Indians would have also used them for shelter and as burial chambers. There's so much history here. There's a real energy about them. You can really sense the spiritual connection that the ancient people had with their environment. And some people believe that Chupacabra is an evil force brought about by our neglect and exploitation of the land.
So Dan and Nat are setting up their stealth cameras in these caves. And also at the Montessori school, where the kids saw a Chupacabra.
find anything?
No, but it's worth a try. Dogs is my bet.
And the fact that the creature was seen here 3 years ago. You never know, this might be the one time that we actually get a real creature.
No, it hasn't rolled at all.
But as I said earlier, El Chupacabra is the most elusive of all cryptozoology's creatures. And unfortunately, it has evaded us. Nothing on any of the camera traps. But here's a twist. As Daniel mentioned earlier, the Atacama Desert is the closest environment on Earth to the surface of Mars. And all the while these Chupacabra attacks were going on, it's claimed NASA personnel were working close by. Coincidence? Maybe. But not according to Professor Eduardo Arce. He says he had a run-in with NASA and some FBI agents at the Calama airport shortly after the Chupacabra attack stopped. He says they had some large animals chained up in containers.
Yes, I believe there were animals in there by the sounds and screeching they produced. I'm convinced there was an animal inside, and whatever was inside was mad because the truck were rocking back and forth really strongly. Now, I can't guarantee that there were chupacabras inside, but to me, it was logical that there was something very strange and not from around here.
The noises that were coming out of the crate, was it any animal that you recognize?
I can't explain the sound. The only thing I can explain is that it could not be from around here. Nothing makes that kind of noise or has the strength to shake a truck from within. It was just so strong and disturbing. The NASA people and some FBI agents came to me and asked for authorization to enter the airport, and I couldn't give to them. They said they were waiting for the Chilean Air Force.
Were the NASA personnel and the FBI agents acting secretively or strangely?
Yes, they were acting very secretive. It was a Saturday and there were no scheduled flights that day. The airport was completely empty. All they wanted to do was just get in and get out. They identified themselves, but all they wanted was to get out of here fast.
Do you think that NASA has anything to do with the Chupacabra phenomenon?
Yes, I believe there is a relationship there. I believe they were doing an experiment and it basically got out of control.
So the mystery continues, and there are so many possible explanations for El Chupacabra. Was NASA somehow involved, as Eduardo Arce suggests, or is El Chupacabra a new, undescribed species? What about Dr. Sanchez's suggestion that aliens are involved, and that it could be a gargoyle-type creature from the past? Or is it part of a conspiracy? Daniel and Natalie, have you ever had such an investigation as this?
Bill, this is definitely the strangest mystery that I think we've ever investigated. People are describing this creature as being a combination of different animals. We're talking about a monkey, a kangaroo, a bird, a dog. So really we're talking about a creature that is biologically impossible. So what could this creature be? Have humans created it? Or is this something paranormal?
What's your take, Dan?
I really don't know. It's a very, very strange phenomenon. And if it's not just limited to Chile, it happens all over South America and Hispanic countries, so it is a really, really strange phenomenon. I can't think of any animal, any flesh and blood animal on Earth that can actually do the damage that this creature is doing.
I don't think I would put much weight to NASA being responsible for these killings and for Chupacabra. Yes, we know that NASA is doing tests here for the Mars mission, but in my mind, if I was NASA, I wouldn't be leaving these carcasses behind. If they you know, wanted to go out and take some biological subjects for their experiments, they would take the whole animal. They wouldn't bother leaving the carcass there because then they're liable to get caught.
Well, I mean, the people that are in these areas are very... a way to control the people would be through fear. So, and in a very sort of religious, in a very religious context, these things can be seen as you know, a satanic thing, and it just basically a way of controlling the public. It could be a fear tactic used to you know, to keep people under control.
Could it be that organised crime has picked up on El Chupacabra and is exploiting it to scare people?
I think organised crime is a huge possibility. I mean, what better way to instill fear in the people than by leaving these carcasses out for people to see? Look at the carcasses, you look at the killings, and the wounds are so precise, they're so clean. I think it can only be humans that are responsible for these killings. To me, it doesn't seem like any animal of this world could be capable of doing that. So it's either humans or it's something paranormal.
What about the occult?
If it was simply a matter of people performing experiments or a satanic cult, they would take the carcasses with them, you would think.
I think people are behind it, and it's a way to instill fear on a population and control them and keep people in line. It's definitely something to do with a conspiracy at some level, whether it's organised crime or NASA or a government. I really don't know. I guess time will tell.
Whether it's a conspiracy or an alien creature from beyond, we may never know, but the Animal X Natural Mystery Unit will keep searching for the answer. There are stranger things in heaven and earth, and you've just seen one of them on Animal X.